you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Hi, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guests may not represent those of the host or the station. Folks, I'm excited. I know it's the end of November, but it is still National Caregivers Month, and we should acknowledge caregivers every day. If you know a caregiver, reach out to one, throw them a gift, do something special for them and their children. I know they would appreciate it. And it is also National Alzheimer's Month. Those who have lived with it, those who have experienced it as a caregiver will never forget it. You, the public, need to know. You, the public, need to educate yourself. There is no cure, no treatment. If you think you are having memory problems, please see your physician. There's no shame. See your doctor and talk to your doctor about your concerns. Folks, you don't want to listen to this podcast. I'm excited. I have with me today a very special guest. I have Craig Fowler with me, who is founder and CEO of JOYGAGE. Craig was on July 2nd. Go back to that show and find out about JOYGAGE. But Craig is on because he's going to talk about advocacy, his mom who had Alzheimer's, and I am happy to have Craig back on the show. Welcome, Craig.
Well, thank you so much, Betsy. It is wonderful to be back on.
Thank you. Craig, you and I we have a lot in common, and we share a lot of the same visions. I would like for you to tell the audience your caregiving story with your mom.
Sure. Well, my mother, Wanda, who was just a wonderful, wonderful person. I mean, I guess all of us feel like our mothers are wonderful, but my mom was really special. She was diagnosed with early onset dementia. In her early 60s, she lived for, I guess, around 12 years with that, and then passed away on Christmas Eve 5 years ago. And, you know, the journey with her was interesting, and I learned a lot. And that journey, you know, made me really become an advocate. And afterwards, I've now in the last 5 years been involved. I'm on the board of the Dementia Action Alliance. I've been very involved with the Alzheimer's Association, and, you know, have a JOYGAGE that focuses on helping people with dementia. And it's, you know, her journey, I think, was like a lot of people I talk about, in that it was more normal than we knew, yet we were always told that she was different and that there was something wrong and they could never get her medication right, that they could never get her what they call behavior right. And my mom, it was a struggle with her, especially in the last few years. And coming away from that, I became determined to try to be part of a movement that would make the lives of the people coming after me and my father, who was the daily caregiver for my mom. I really wanted to work to make their lives easier and to help the people like my mother living with dementia live better and have more knowledge and more options available.
Yes, I am all for that, making life better for those who have dementia to live their best life possible. Because as you know, Craig, people can live anywhere from up to 20 years after diagnosis, depending on their health, and if they have underlying conditions. My husband lived 10 years.
Yes. And in the case of my mom, the one thing that I found that was really the biggest struggle that she had, and that my dad had for probably, I would say, 8 years of the time, was that she was just bored. And my mother was someone who had worked for years. She ended up retiring because of having struggles at work with dementia, and then stopped being active in church and other activities, and over time stopped even being able to do some of the things that she was doing at home, enjoying movies and television. With the short-term memory fading, it became harder and harder for her to enjoy those things. So with my mom, one of the key problems that we found we had was just finding ways to keep her engaged and active, but also to keep her feeling that she was contributing, which is it's a huge need we all have as humans, is to help others and to contribute. And especially for someone like my mom, that was such an active, caring, and giving person throughout her life. Looking back, I think she was quite frustrated in her last 10 years that she was being cared for, but didn't have opportunities to give back like she always had. And as part of forming JOYGAGE, I wanted to seek out opportunities and bring them to people who have dementia to be more engaged in daily life, to be less bored, and to have opportunities to contribute and to help others.
Yes, that is very important. I think when people get that diagnosis, they think, oh, no, now I got to go home and wait to die. Well, why not live your best that you can while you can? This is what needs to change, I feel, Craig, when people get that diagnosis. Don't focus on, oh, when am I going to die? Focus on living and living in the now, because that's what we have.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there are so many examples that I've learned in my advocacy journey and from forming JOYGAGE over the last year. There's so many things that you can still be active and engaged in when you have dementia. And I think one of the key things that I think it's really the last 3 months from a number of experiences I've had, Betsy, is that it's important for individuals living with dementia to feel open to telling other people, hey, I have dementia, and seeking out in the earliest times that, in the early days when they're still functioning pretty well and aren't having as many issues, to start the process and the journey of learning how to live well with dementia for many, many years, but to start it early and to be open about their diagnosis versus hiding the diagnosis, which is really, I think, what my mom did for years. She never wanted people to know she had dementia. She tried to hide it. She never even uttered the term Alzheimer's or dementia. She wanted to avoid it. And looking back, I think there were a number of opportunities that we could have, that I think would have came her way if the people around her had understood more about dementia. But also, I think we as a society need to educate all of us on living well with dementia and remove that stigma. Because the reason why, Betsy, I think people like my mother never wanted to admit they had dementia is society still places, there still are huge around dementia that shouldn't be there.
Amen, Craig. Yes, I definitely, amen. I feel that we need to, I used to, go in my car, do videos, and I would say, we need to come out of the dementia closet and shine a light on it, on our loved ones, personalize this disease, put a name and a face to this disease. And I really am glad now that more people with dementia are coming out and speaking up about their experiences, because this is how we learn, sharing our stories. And more caregivers are now showing their journey, and they're speaking up. And I like to think that, like I was one of the pioneers in that, of, showing that journey. And yes, you can have a good time. Your loved one can still participate. I was of the philosophy, let's do what we can while we can, because there will come a point where you can't. So why not do it what you can, as much as you can, while your loved one still can do it. There's no need to sit in the house and to be isolated. That's how I feel. I mean, I know now it's different with COVID.
I think you're exactly right. There are so many ways to enjoy life, and there's so many different options out there that actually can work well with people with dementia. JOYGAGE. If anyone would like to check us out, you can see JOYGAGE. It's JOYGAGE. You can see us on social media. Also go to www.joygage.com. But one of the things we developed that has really been well received is, and it seems like a very simple concept, but for movies, we have links to lots of classic movies. And with those, we've created a simple one-page document that describes in detail each of 4 sections: the beginning, the early phase, the middle, and the end of the movie, just on one page, so that someone with dementia or even someone with another, just with memory, have that sheet with them, so when they're watching a movie and start forgetting or having a hard time piecing together what's happened, they always have that, what we call cheat sheet, to look at. And people, that's just one example of something that's pretty easy for us to create that lets someone living with dementia be able to enjoy watching a movie. And if you think of that one concept, it's similar to me in many ways to with someone with mobility issues. When I was a kid, it was very hard mobility issues to get around. Buses, stores, stairs. There were stairways everywhere. Now we've done a wonderful job in the world of making every stores, public transportation, sidewalks, all accessible for people with mobility issues. I'd love to see a world in the next 5 to 10 years where individuals with simple cognitive impairments, with dementia and other things, have similar similar changes are made to make sure that basic events like movies and other things are accessible to those individuals.
Yes. I know back in the 60s, people were placed in institutions who had mental disabilities, physical and mental disabilities, and they were forgotten about because it was, at that time, those people were shunned. And now I am really happy to see people with physical and mental disabilities out in the workplace. And I think that is wonderful, and I really think that needs to happen, to have dementia-friendly neighborhoods and stores, and it is starting to happen slowly, but it is starting to happen. And Craig, I wish there was a JOYGAGE when Matt was in the beginning and middle. He could have enjoyed that, especially the music. You have music on your JOYGAGE, and how important, music is. That's very important. And you could just see the difference in people when they listen to music from their past that they enjoyed. It's like they come to life. They literally just come to life.
Yes, and one of the things that we found as well in the research that we've done in the work with music is that often when an individual, and this actually was the case with my mother as well, as someone with dementia gets into a care setting later in life, and it's fairly typical for most people that at some stage they are in a memory care unit and a nursing unit at the end. That's a point where the music, sadly, Betsy, is off. There's music that's important to you. It's music from your past. It's music that's been going. I know I have music that still goes through my head every single day from songs I heard 30 years ago, that's music that will always be with me. And, it's important that we make sure individuals have access to that music even at the later stages of dementia. And, in the current world, that's usually not the case. And so one of the things that we're very passionate about in my team is finding ways to make sure that we can store the information, the songs that are really important to each individual, so that regardless of the care setting they're in, which often it's a changing care setting as someone moves on, and regardless of the nurses or the people who may be in that care setting are changing, that it's always clear what music that person would like. And it's also important to make sure they have access and someone is helping to play that music when they're at the later stages.
Yes, music is very important. My dad was in a nursing facility, and my mom brought his record player, the swing bands from the 40s. My dad enjoyed, and I have to tell the story. The last time Matt went to the dentist, he was pretty well advanced at that point, but he still was able to go to the dentist, and I told the dental hygienist, play Johnny Cash, and you won't have a problem. She played Johnny Cash, and she said, he did very well. He got a little antsy near the end, but he did very well. And I said, I told you, Johnny Cash relaxed him. My husband loved Johnny Cash. So I would put Johnny Cash on. Showered him, fed him. Yeah.
That is a great story.
Yeah, so thank you. So music does help. And you see it. There's been research, extensive research with music and showing how people with dementia it just registers with them, and they just change right in front of your eyes. They'll sing, they'll clap, move their feet. I always say, Craig, that we have to meet our loved ones where they are, in their stage.
Yes.
And I think JOYGAGE is wonderful, really from the beginning to the later stages, because there's so much that you have on there for people to look into. I think you have exercises on there or sporting. Yes. And, all different types of activities. So I really want to tell people, check out JOYGAGE, really.
Yes.
Check it out.
We would love for everyone. We'd love for everyone to check us out. But also, I wanted to bring up something that you just mentioned that we're a huge advocates of, and I'm personally a huge advocate of, and that is when individuals are diagnosed with dementia, you have an ability to document the things that you really enjoy. And this is something that JOYGAGE can do automatically, but even without using a service like JOYGAGE, individuals can write down and document the exact songs that they really, really like. Now you can create playlists on Spotify or lots of other services. You can create, there's so many ways now to document what you enjoy as a person. And it's important for individuals to start doing that early on, because often situations happen, such as there's someone who's close to a spouse, that spouse passes away, the person with dementia is still alive, but the people around them in the care setting won't understand what they enjoy. And if we as a society are able to make sure that people with dementia understand that there will be a point where they have a harder time the different things that they enjoy, but can actually document it early, it will help make sure that those things can be brought back to them throughout the rest of their life.
Yes, and I say this over and over again. It's what the person with the dementia likes, their music, not what the caregiver likes, but what your loved one likes to listen to. May not like their music, and they may not like yours, but it's all about their music and what they like to hear. And I can't even stress that enough, Craig. That's important to have a playlist of different types of music that they like that gives them their beautiful memories back. It's amazing. It always baffled me that Matt couldn't do certain things, but yet he could hum and he could whistle a song. Mm-hmm. That just floored me. It just amazed me.
And studies have shown that even in very advanced stages of dementia, the human brain will respond well and light up when music is played, particularly familiar music. So it's the brain is a wonderful thing, and music has a special impact.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So a few other kind of interesting things.
Sure, go ahead.
You mentioned too. So I know when I went in the past, when I visited various care facilities in the past, I've joked about this, but there's often a facility with multiple people there will have, an lunch area. I know things have changed some with COVID, but an open area with something like the Weather Channel playing, or if there's music playing, it will be kind of a very specific, generic type of older music. So often in a group care setting, there will be kind of like, I'll call it play to the masses, a kind of lowest common denominator entertainment going, something that no one really likes if it's specialized for anyone, but also things that are, not offensive to anyone and that, quickly look at. And I feel like that is, in today's world where we have access to devices, access to, it's so easy to get an iPad or iPad type device, including, that's secure with a great case on it. There's so many ways now, Betsy, to make sure that individuals actually can have individualized entertainment, even in care settings. I know in the past that's the thought of having individual devices has been, not well accepted. Even individual televisions are banned in some facilities. But I do believe in the future we should be demanding that each individual person gets music or the movies and the things that they actually will enjoy. And I think that's, I don't know about you, but I don't want to ever be in a spot in life where the only entertainment I have 24 hours a day is the Weather Channel, right? That would
right.
feel like that's not the future we all want.
That's true. And I think, Craig, that the baby boomers, and I'm one of them, are going to eventually change how we want to be treated in our older years and at the end of life. I don't think baby boomers want to be warehoused in these huge nursing facilities. I think you're going to see more group homes popping up. If I had the money, I would invest in a group home, because I think that's going to be the new way to go. And I also think you're going to see people rooming together, such as the Golden Girls situation, because they can't afford to live alone. Mm-hmm. And, we don't want to be warehouse sitting there, like you said, in the huge main room that they have, watching, the news or the Weather Channel. There should be individual entertainment. I think you're going to see that, because I think families are going to start demanding that, and the individuals themselves, if they could speak, they will want that, and they should have it. There's no reason not to.
I completely agree, and I believe that in the United States, we've sort of developed this suburban concept that when you get older, you're going to live on a cul-de-sac in an isolated house on your own, especially if your spouse has passed away. You'll live in kind of an isolated area apart from people until you're not able to do that anymore, and then you'll move into a large group setting, kind of sort of moving from a spot where you're potentially lonely without but have full choice to suddenly a spot where you're around lots of other people but are given virtually no choices. And I feel like that, to your point, Betsy, I think there are so many other living scenarios that are between that we should be pursuing. And we have to keep transitioning to person-centered care and even further to person-directed care, so that the individual with dementia or any older individual should be very active in directing their care and making choices about things like when they will get up in the morning, and I think those of us who are advocating for changes to the caregiving world would love to see just a fairly radical change. I believe, to your point, I think boomers and other people are going to be demanding something better than what we have now, and I certainly hope we can help develop a more sustainable and just better living path forward.
Yes. When I was a teenager, and think of nursing facilities, when I was a teenager, I worked in a nursing home, and it was awful. And those people, I was 16 and 17. Those people were in their 60s. Okay, I'm in my 60s now, but back then I thought they were old, and they looked old. And, people didn't live as long back then, but they were housed in one room, and whatever the aides wanted at the time was on. It was not anything that they would have watched. People were watching, Bandstand, Soul Train. These people didn't want to watch that. They wanted something else, but they didn't have a choice. And now people are more outspoken. They know they have choices, and they're making choices. And this is what we have to do, is make our choices known. And, of course, it could go, I've talked about this many times, get your power of attorney in order, get your living will done, so you have in place what you want your end of life to look like. And it's not being morbid, it's part of living. What do you want?
You're absolutely correct. And, I do feel right now a lot of the communities and care facilities that are out there doing their best, but we're in a tough time, Betsy, where staffing, everyone I talk with now, their biggest struggle is staffing. It's hiring, but it's even more so retaining good staff, and becoming what we want them to be, being person directed, and facilities does require staff that are able to react a bit differently and make sure that people, for example, can get up at the schedules they would like to get up. And the real worry I have, Betsy, is that while many of us are advocating and pushing for changes and improvements, we're in a world where a lack of staffing is slowing down the innovation and the change that we would like to have happen. So hopefully, in the coming years, we'll get that straightened out. But shortages in almost every industry. So I'm worried that in the next few years we want to improve, but it's hard to improve without the right people in place. Yes.
I could tell you that nursing shortages in hospitals and nursing homes have always been that way. That's nothing new, and because I've seen it firsthand myself. And I think that we need to improve, the quality of life of people in these facilities, group homes. And I think we really need to have educated people, trained appropriately, especially in dealing with a memory care unit. I think that the aides and the nursing staff and doctors need to be specifically trained. And a lot of times they're not trained appropriately, or they don't keep going to classes, and they definitely need that.
I agree, and we could take an entire show on this.
Yeah, it's an entire show about that.
Understanding medication and doing medication, having medication go properly, I think in its own could be. That was a struggle my mother had. Was being over medicated, but then the medication was not working. We were told my mother was a specific situation. They were confused by her situation, but then after my mother passed away and I started becoming more of an advocate, I've talked with so many people with exactly the same story, that their loved one was the problem. They couldn't get the medication right. And now that I've become more educated myself, I realized that the medication itself was probably a lot of the problem. And and that just having too much versus the right medication was a problem. And I do think there's just so much that we can learn about people living with dementia, and not over medicating, but also using medication the right way. That again, we could have a whole show on that, but I am passionate that we have to do much better than we're doing today.
Oh, I agree, Craig. The experience that I had with Matt, my husband, with medication, especially at the end of his life, you give medication to help with the agitation. It causes side effects, such as not being able to walk. Sometimes medications work the opposite in some people. And, medication is trial and error. But the doctors and the nurses need to believe the caregiver when they tell them this medication isn't working or this medication is causing these side effects. I had a whole big problem with that. And I told the doctor, the neurologist, I said, these medications are black box for people that are 65 and older. And he said, well, that's the best that we have at this time. And the other thing, Craig, is that a lot of these medications, they're antipsychotic drugs. They are for people who have psychiatric problems. They're not for a dying brain. And they need medications for a dying brain. Am I on a soapbox? Yes, because I experienced this. We need medication specifically for a brain that is dying.
Well, and the other thing, so I hate the term behavior, which is overused in this area, but when someone is bored, when someone is frustrated, when someone, regardless of the situation of their brain, when you're bored, you're frustrated, no one is listening to you, you're not able to maybe communicate the same way you would like to, and you're in a situation that's frustrating, you will get angry. And someone without dementia would get angry in many of the situations that we place people with dementia in. And so I think there are a number of people who are really active in taking an alternative approach to what's called by many people behavior issues, which is to, instead of immediately putting drugs in that will calm someone down because they're antipsychotic or antidepressants, but instead of doing that, trying to understand the root cause of why someone is agitated, can actually have a much better, if you can solve the root cause versus numbing someone's brain, that is a much, much better approach.
Absolutely, Craig, especially in a nursing care facility where the staff is short, not enough people, and someone's sitting in a wet diaper. Yes, they will be agitated. It's uncomfortable. And they might act out because they are uncomfortable. So instead of having enough staff to change their diapers as often as they should, they just throw some pills down their throat. Not in all places, but I've heard stories and I've seen it. We need to take better care of our loved ones in the facility. These facilities really need to get to modern times because they're going to need to.
Yeah, I think in fact one of the missions, core mission of JOYGAGE, is to try to eliminate boredom. I just believe one of my fundamental advocacy things that humans need to, all of us as humans need to feel like we're contributing, and we need to feel like we are doing interesting and meaningful things. And dementia does pull away our ability to do so many of the things that we were able to do before. If you've got Alzheimer's or vascular dementia, your short-term memory will keep you from being able to do some of the things, even playing the same games and things that you used to play. And so while we're in this world where there seems like there's a million entertainment and options and things to do, if we can just make sure that we're able to match people living with dementia to things that they can enjoy and that they can do that are still that's meaningful to them, that maybe doesn't take that same level of short-term memory. I genuinely believe that is the key to making individuals' lives better. And even in facilities, if people are interested, feel like they're contributing and active, they're not going to be as you're not going to have the anger, quote unquote behavior issues and things that you do today if people are living a life that is not frustrating.
Yes, I agree. We all want to be useful. We all want to feel accepted and need to have that, human contact, and that we're, that we're worthy. One of the most heartbreaking things was when I saw Matt cry one day, and Matt wasn't one for crying, he felt worthless. He hated how he was. And he needs to be reassured that he was, loved as he is, and that he is worthy, and we are there for him. And, we need to, really get our loved ones to have a quality of living, no matter what their disease is, to make them feel loved and that they can contribute, because they can. And, let them do what they can do while they can still do it. And then when they can't, modify it. Do some modification.
Yes. And just, I think the modification is key, and I believe that's where the future lies. And it's something we've tried to do with JOYGAGE, but we're just on the cutting edge of, I think, a huge movement or a huge opportunity to just take, and I know this sounds like a silly example, but there's a Sudoku puzzle that is mostly filled out might be very boring to you or I, but if someone loved to do Sudoku puzzles and they're getting to mid-stage dementia, that might be that's something that can be perfect for that person. And there are 1,000 examples of that, of just taking something that exists today, making it match and making it accessible to someone whose brain works differently than the average person. And I feel like those things are the specific items that can make someone have a much better daily quality of life and have a less frustration.
Yes, I agree 100%. Craig, I just love talking to you. You are inspiring. I just love talking to you. Is there anything else you would like to tell the audience?
No, just again, I'd like to say, just to tell everyone, please, if you haven't checked out JOYGAGE, JOYGAGE, please do. But also, as we get into the holiday season, this is for everyone to look at your loved ones, the people you know who are living with dementia, and to ask the question, are they as active as they could be? Are they doing, are they as active in, daily life? Are they as entertained? And are there things that you can find that will allow them to, this holiday season, contribute more and just be an overall more active and happy person? And I feel like that's all I'd like to leave everyone with is this is a great time when many of us will be seeing relatives that we don't see to ask that and, see if there's one or two small daily changes we can help make. And if you're listening to this living with dementia, think about looking at the different opportunities for yourself to still be active. I mean, there's so many things that someone living with dementia can still take part in. Look for those activities.
Thank you, Craig. And I have to add also, with JOYGAGE, you do not have to have dementia. You can be very well with it and enjoy JOYGAGE. So it's for everyone.
You are. You are correct.
So I just want to throw that out there.
Yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Craig Fowler. And the links will be in the blog on how you can check out JOYGAGE. So please read the blog that Jeannie White, the station manager, writes. I want to thank Jeannie White for writing the blog, producing the show, and I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passionate World Talk Radio Network, that makes this all possible. Thank you, Craig Fowler, for coming on. Folks, please check out JOYGAGE. You have, really nothing to lose. Check it out. I think it's a great app. I think it's a great source for anyone. And I wish it was available for my husband. And this is why I have people on, such as Craig Fowler, because I want to bring resources and pay it forward, because I wish I knew about resources like Craig Fowler has, the JOYGAGE. I want you to know about it now, so your loved ones can enjoy it. And this is why I do what I do, and I love doing what I do, because I want to bring resources and have the audience know that there is help out there for you and for your loved one. And so that is why I love doing what I do. And I'm blessed and I'm thankful to Jeannie White and Lillian Caldwell for that. And I just want to tell everyone, if you missed any of this podcast, you can hear it again on your favorite podcast outlets. It is free to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy. Some examples is CastBox, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon.com. And you will hear great speakers. I have phenomenal speakers on, phenomenal guests. I think they're phenomenal. I know they are. I learn something from every guest that comes on my show. I learn from them. And I just want to thank everyone for listening. Please share this podcast to help others. This is what Chatting with Betsy is about. It's about helping others. And I want to wish everybody a happy holiday season. I say happy holiday season because this is international. People have so many different holidays. I can't keep track, folks. So have a happy holiday season. Have a happy and blessed New Year, and at least a peaceful one. And thank you again for listening. And in a world where you can be anything, please be kind. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy and Passionate World Talk Radio Network. Bye, everybody.
Are you looking for an internet talk radio station for your podcast? Look no further. At the helm of Passionate World Talk Radio are two women that want to provide a spot for you and your podcast to be heard. There are many other places for your podcast, but PWTR has the audience. You will not be disappointed. Our station has been on the internet for the past 16 years. Call us for more information. 484-364-1032 or text Jeannie White, station manager, at PHECONNECTSHOW@gmail.com for podcast show details. Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon ALEXA, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.